I'm always surprised when I find one of these mowers being given away for free through some website or app that anyone can use and realize just how easy it is to get them running again. Of course, it helps that the previous owner didn't bother to take care of it, otherwise it would have kept running and we'd never get this chance to fix it. But we can't start congratulating ourselves just yet until we've got it running again, because you never know, it might just be a lot worse than it looks. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Mower branded lawnmower, and the problem is that I just picked it up from someone who was giving it away by posting it up on a website where you can give away stuff for free. Now, they did mention that it's going to need some work to get it running again, because in the last video on this mower, it didn't look like this, and it was very obvious that it hadn't been used for a really long time. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, but yours might be a little different, so this might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it. I'll be glad to answer your questions. So on first inspection, it looks like this mower is in really good condition and it's not missing anything, which is a plus when you intend on selling it. And as much as I like these little mowers, I already have one that I like even more, and I don't have any reason to sell that other one yet. Now, according to some of the stickers on this mower, it's only a handful of years old, so I am a bit worried that there might be something really wrong with it, and that's the reason why they got rid of it. Now, in the last video on this mower, we did try and start it, and luckily it did start and run, but we did have to put fuel into the carb's throat to find that out. And after taking a look at what was in the fuel tank, it was pretty obvious that there was a lot of water in the tank along with some very dark looking fuel. That means the next thing we need to do is to get to the carb to drain out any leftover fuel and water that might still be in it, and while we're there, we'll also check on the fuel jet as well. Now, with the air filter out of the way, we can see that the filter base is completely covered in dirt. I'm not sure just how it got this bad, especially with an air filter installed. Now, my only guess is that at some point the filter must have been removed and then the mower was ran without a filter for some time, at which point the filter was put back in. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but there's simply no way the base could look like this unless the filter was gone for at least a short while. So here's a better view of that dirty air filter base. As you can see, it's pretty bad, and I've never seen one this bad unless the filter was gone while in use. Just to let you know, for a lawnmower, I would not recommend using it without some sort of air filter. I wouldn't care if you put a folded up sock in the filter base, at least it's better than nothing. So here's the part of the video that's going to differ from some of the other videos that you may have seen before. What I like to do is just remove the fuel bowl to surface the carb instead of taking off the entire carb. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking the carb off the engine to service it. In fact, they make it about as simple as taking off your shoes, but there's more risk involved, which is why if I can, I'll do it this way instead. So what are the risks that I'm talking about? Well, the first risk is having to take the governor linkage off the carb, which means you could damage the linkage, or worse yet, break the plastic lever on top of the carb. The other risk is the possibility of breaking the plastic ports on either the carb or the fuel tank, mainly from handling them or trying to take off the fuel line. Now, after popping off the fuel bowl from the carb, I was kind of surprised that it landed the way that it did, which kept most of the fuel from spilling out everywhere. Now, it is kind of difficult to see if there's anything in the bottom of the fuel bowl, whether that's water or debris, so the next best way is to just pour it into a glass jar and see what we can find in it. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but at the bottom of the jar, under the gasoline, is about an ounce of water, which makes sense considering how much water we found inside the fuel tank in the last video. But here's the best part, this whole situation could have been avoided, and I'll tell you how. Now, the first way, and I think it's the easiest way, is to only use 100% gasoline with no ethanol. Unfortunately, from what I've been told by some of the viewers, getting 100% gasoline can be really tough. Sometimes you have to drive way out of your way to get it, which I can understand is a real pain. Now, before we get back to the story, we do need to make sure that the opening in the fuel jet is clear. Now, if this jet is clogged, it will not allow any fuel to pass through it and make it to the engine. Now, once it's clear, we'll then start to put the carb back together again. Now, back to the part about getting good fuel, or should I say not being able to get 100% gasoline in your area, which means you're out of luck, right? Not really. You can also use fuel additives to guard against ethanol-related issues due to long-term storage and excessive moisture buildup. But yet again, you might have to go out of your way to either order a fuel additive or maybe go to the store and pick one up. Either way, you're going to have to put some effort into making sure the fuel in your mower is not going to turn into poison while in storage. So what if you don't want to go out of your way to getting good gasoline or picking up an additive, or maybe you just don't want to spend any extra money? What then? Well, I guess you could always do what your owner's manual says to do, which is to run the machine out of fuel at the end of the mowing season. And the best part is you don't have to do anything extra or pay for any additives or even leave the comfort of your own yard to get it done, and yet 90% of users still don't bother to do it. So if you haven't figured it out yet, it's not because you don't have choices. Instead, it seems to be a lack of motivation, which is more than likely the reason why this one ended up with a half tank of water in its fuel tank. Now this is the air filter that came out of this engine, and I did clean it, but it's not in the best condition, so I do plan on changing it once the new ones arrive in the mail. So here's something you may not know. Since we had to open the carb, we need to make sure it's not going to leak any fuel. So before I get the mower back on the ground, I'm going to put some fuel into the tank and see if it's going to start leaking. The reason why I'm doing it now is because it's a lot easier to fix while the mower is on the table instead of being back on the ground, and I'm getting ready to mow with it. After a few minutes, I don't see any fuel dripping onto the mowing deck underneath the carb, so I don't think it's leaking any fuel. However, if yours is leaking fuel, you might have to take the bowl off and put it back on. Otherwise, you may need to take the carb off for a better perspective while working on it. After that, I'm going to see just how well the wheels spin, and even though the ones in the back are spinning pretty easily, the fronts could be just a bit better. So unfortunately, I forgot to get a pull reading before putting the mower on the table, so I guess I'll have to put it back on the ground so I can do the test. Now for a mower like this one with front wheel drive, I'd expect a reading between 2 and 2.5 kilograms, and on our first pull, we were able to get a reading of 2.8 kilograms, which is a bit out of range. That means we'll need to do a second pull and see if we can get a better reading, and it looks like we did because this time we were able to get a reading of 2.1 kilograms. Now even though our best reading was within the expected range, I do want to see if we can improve on these readings by cleaning the axles and lubricating them. Now I do want to mention that this issue that kept the mower from starting was completely avoidable, but it also may have been the last straw for the previous owner as far as owning a gasoline mower. You heard me correctly, they switched over to battery electric to replace this mower, probably because they felt as though this one was just too much work to keep going, which I find a bit ironic. Now the reason why I say that is because aside from doing a few oil changes here and there, the only other thing you have to do is to use good fuel and then run it dry at the end of the season. I mean, how difficult can that be? So let's go over the differences between both power sources. Now I'm not going to mention the gasoline side only because I've already mentioned them earlier, so we'll only say what they are for the batteries. And if you've owned a cell phone for the past couple of years, you already know about the biggest issue, which is batteries losing capacity over time, which doesn't really happen to gasoline engines unless you put a smaller fuel tank on them. Another issue is having to wait for the battery to recharge, which most get around by buying an ultra affordable spare battery, which you don't have to worry about when using gasoline. And the last point of comparison that I want to bring up is something that I'm quite surprised hasn't happened yet, which is the chance for a battery fire. Of course, a gasoline engine can go up in flames as well, but at least you can put that one out with water, while a battery fire will be a bit more difficult to put out. Now, I am not contesting their choice to go with the battery mower. If it works out better for the way they use it and fits their lifestyle better, then I hope it works out for them. Although I do hope they at least read the owner's manual this time because they might be surprised by what it has to say. Now, if they thought that moving over to batteries was going to free them of taking care of their mower, well, good luck either way. In fact, if you're considering doing the same thing these people did, you can find the owner's manual for the item you're intending on getting online and reading it before buying it. The internet, it's like reading a magazine or a newspaper at the store or newsstand and not buying it. Now, hopefully after reading the manual online, you'll be able to make a better choice as to whether or not you want to switch over. But knowing people, why would they pre-read a manual when you can just buy the item and then throw the hard copy of the manual away that came with it? Now, after getting the first drive wheel back onto the mower, it's hard to tell that it's any better until we do the same job on the other wheel, but I can't see how this couldn't be any better. So I just found a really weird situation here. It looks like the blade adapter has some damage to the middle of it, and it's not allowing the blade to sit correctly against it. Now, this could be an issue because it'll cause the rotating assembly to be off balance and cause the mower to shake while running. Now, it might not be that bad, but if it's bad enough, it might appear that the crankshaft could be bent, which is something you don't want the buyer to think, especially if it's not bent, so we'll have to wait and see just how bad it is. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to check, at least on camera, but I can confirm the crankshaft is not bent to begin with, so any shaking from the mower would be from the blade or the blade adapter. Now, after getting the mower off the table and before we try and start it up to see how badly it shakes, I'll use the pull tester to see just how much better it is after lubricating the wheels. And according to the first pull, it would seem that it's improved quite a bit, which is further confirmed with a second pull, which surprisingly was the same as the first one. Now that we're done with most of the maintenance except the oil change, which I typically do when the engine is warm, there's nothing left to do except start it up and see how much it's going to shake. So it did take a few pulls on the rope to get it to start, but then again, according to some of the comments I've gotten, I do have the pulling strength of a 6-year-old. However, it would seem that even with a couple of nice and easy pulls, it finally started and ran pretty well, except for the shaking. Just what I thought might happen did happen. Now the shaking is not that bad, but it's enough that someone who's looking to buy it might be concerned, although most buyers are just happy that it starts and runs, but I do plan on fixing this just in a later video though. There's also one other issue that I was not expecting, and it's related to the self-propel. Now the handle is really tough to close, and I'm worried that there might be something wrong with either how the cable is moving or something's going on with the transmission. Now luckily it still works, but I would like to take a closer look at it just to make sure it's not going to have a problem later on. Now it could be just as simple as lubricating the cable, but if it's worse then it could mean a transmission issue, but hopefully not. Otherwise it might mean this mower is more trouble than it's worth. But if you've seen how high the prices are for a new self-propelled mower, then I'm pretty sure that any time I put into this project will be worth it. Now, I'm not sure how much time you'd want to devote trying to fix a lawnmower, but if you find it more of a pastime, then I'd say put as much time as you want into it. As for this one, we'll have to come back to it in a later video to find out if we can fix the shaking and also look at the transmission to see if we can get it to work a little bit easier. Now, I don't typically do this, but I would like to address the previous owner of this mower. I'd like to thank you for posting up this mower for free and giving it a second chance at being useful again. It's something that you didn't need to do, but you did it anyway, and now it's only a few steps away to making someone's day when they receive a working and clean mower that's hopefully going to last a few more years. Hopefully your new battery electric mower is doing what you need it to do with little to no fuss, and hopefully it's going to last you just as long as this one. However, I hope you read the owner's manual for your new mower and learn how to keep your battery from losing capacity faster than it's supposed to. If not, you'll be buying a new battery in about a year or two. But to be honest, if you had read the owner's manual for this one, I think you'd still be using it right now instead of watching me fix it. So my question is, how bad would your mower have to get before you switched over to a battery mower like the previous owner did for this one? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.